Welcome to Beyond the Label, a raw, real-life look at living with disabilities, presented by Century Martial Arts, the world leader in martial arts since 1976. CenturyMartialArts.com for everything that is martial arts. And now your host, Mike D. and JD.
Welcome to Beyond the Label. I am Mike D.
I'm JD.
And this episode, better.
Yeah.
Before we were arguing about whether it was episode or week or month. Anyway, so this episode, we're going to actually talk about the origination of where this podcast kind of came from, which is the Adaptive Martial Arts Association. So before we get started, talk a little bit about our sponsor for a second.
So our sponsor has been with us since the beginning, and not the beginning of this podcast, but the beginning of our organization. And that was in 2011. And they've been great. It's like whatever we want to do as a group.
They're very supportive,
they're
right?
Very supportive.
Yeah, so Century Martial Arts makes what? What do they do?
They make all sorts of gear and equipment specific to the martial arts industry. So they are the world leader in martial arts supplies.
Sporting equipment and supplies. Awesome.
For martial arts.
Martial arts supplies, sporting equipment and supplies for martial arts. All right. I think we got it. Is it for martial arts?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So thank you, Century, for sponsoring us. And we got an ad that you'll hear in the podcast. Awesome ad, by the way, produced by Jason and Thad that just really kind of highlights their spot in the market.
It was great. It was a fun ad to write, and I'm glad that they enjoyed it, because I really enjoyed producing it.
We're not radio geeks at all.
No,
we don't enjoy this one bit. So let's talk about.
Hey, let's talk. So every time we do this podcast,
I have a different cup.
Who are you pumping today?
I don't know. This came out of your kitchen. Okay, it's Grumps Burgers. It looks like Crumps or Grumps. Is it?
It's
Grumps with a G, and I'm guessing that it is in Texas based on the 817 area code. Is that right?
It is.
In Claiborne or Granbury. Yeah, that's the cup there. Anyway, just a cup. So good burgers though?
Great burgers. And
I'm just drinking water because
it's
the coffee
awesome.
dried me out earlier. So we'll have a different cup every time.
That's right.
What is it like those TV shows like what is it like the Voice and America's Got Talent? They always have their cups.
That's right. Yeah.
But they actually get paid to have those cups. We just happen to have
We'll
them.
do it for free.
Yeah, there you go. That's awesome. So AMAA is what we call it for short because the name of it is so long, but it's on your hat. It is the Adaptive Martial Arts Association, correct?
It is.
And can I put of America in there? Just throw one more A. AMAA.
Everybody else does.
So, we've probably recorded this version of the podcast talking about the organization a couple times, but they all get kind of lost in the files and the fodder, and we never publish it. So this may be the one that actually makes it to the internet. Is that right?
Right. Yeah.
So let's do a deep dive. So let's start at the beginning and go back to the story that is the inspiration for what you do today.
Well, I'm going to give that in a short version because if you want to know that story, check out our very first episode. But I'll give it in a nutshell, and we'll go from there. So I was born with cerebral palsy, and I'm the youngest of 5. But I was raised like my other brothers and sister that taught that I could do anything I wanted to if I put my mind to it.
Until one day,
my brothers signed up for martial arts, and I wanted to too. I looked up to them. I wanted to be just like them, and I still look up to them too. Even as an adult, that doesn't go away, and it's pretty cool. But so my parents were like, sure, we'll talk to the school. They understood from raising me for 8 years that some modifications would have to be made, but they weren't thinking it was a big deal. Well, over the phone, they were told that because of the disability, I wouldn't be able to train. The fact that I was in a wheelchair, that I'd never be able to train, and basically that was an outlandish idea. And
how dare they even ask? Right now. So good short story summary. So let me just kind of recap this. Little kid wants to go do martial arts, thinks there's nothing in the world he can't do, told for one of the first times something he can't do.
It was that was the first time, I think, and for me and for them, that was the toughest no I've ever taken, and even into adulthood, it resonated.
How old were you when that happened?
I was 8 years old.
8 years old. So this is, you'll hear me probably on future episodes talk about pain into passion, right? Like that's a big thing. Like in the world, if you look at people who are really passionate about something, a lot of that comes from a pain somewhere in their life, something that started as a negative that they turned into a positive, and they wanted to take that and make a change. And that's almost exactly what you've done here. I would say.
It is.
So when did you, so just to kind of keep the story moving along, so 8 years old, when did you actually get to start training in martial arts? How old?
When I was 31.
When you were 31. And did you have to do something special to make that happen?
No, I just had to have a pretty candid conversation with a coworker who was constantly busting on me.
Oh, really?
About how many, for lack of a better term, nobody better get offended. How many cripple guys do you know that do XYZ? And I'm like, okay, you want to see? I'm about to do it.
So here comes the theme of this entire podcast series is going to be your pride. That's what I'm learning right now. So that hurt your pride a little bit, huh?
Yeah.
And I know who you're talking about.
And he's just a funny guy.
Yeah.
He didn't mean anything by it.
He's a relationship with you like I do, where we can say anything to you.
Right. And it's and so it was like, all right, man, I'm going to show you. And but then you look at it and you go, gee, well, he's probably right. If you can't punch and kick, how can you do martial arts? Well, I'd done virtually everything else. And I was on the rescue squad when I was a teenager.
And that's a whole nother episode that we're going to dive into, because I just thought about that earlier. Like, we have to go and do what you're doing on the rescue squad and how it works with you.
Yeah. And, well, I was on the rescue squad, and there was a lady on there, and I'd known her. I grew up with her kids. She had a martial arts school, and so when he threw down the gauntlet, I was like...
That was that.
I need to find somebody that can train me, and so I got a hold of her, and she was on the beach somewhere on vacation, and I said...
Leave it to Jason to call you while you're on vacation.
And I said, I've done it to you plenty of times.
I don't know what you're talking about.
And if you don't return my calls, I just keep calling.
Keep calling. I'm in Vegas at dinner with my family on vacation, and Jason needed me to join a meeting. And there was no stopping him. Anyway, go ahead.
And if I can't get you...
He'll sick three other people to make phone calls to you. It's definitely an urgent sense of urgency that night.
And so I said to her, hey, what do you think? You know me pretty well. Can I train? And she goes, yeah, Jay, you can do anything you put your mind to. She's like, why are you asking? I'm like, okay, well, when should I show up at your door? And she goes, well, I said you could train. I didn't know you meant with me.
Oh.
And so we started training together. And she'd only had a kids program at the time. And she never worked with anybody with a disability, but we were both game to figure it out.
So quick pause there, and just want to kind of reflect on this for the audience. At 8 years old, you were told no, can't do it. Lots of other stuff transpires in there throughout your life, growing as an adult. 19 years later, right? Did I do that math right? 20
I'm
years
not much of it. Why you
8 years old to 31
questions?
31, right? So 10, I don't know, 20 some odd years later. God, I shouldn't have even done that. That looked terrible. Fast math is not my thing. 20 some odd years later, someone eggs you on, and you're like, forget it, I'm gonna go do this.
Right.
Yeah. Screw it. We're just gonna figure it out.
Yep. And I'm gonna find somebody that can help me.
That's awesome. And that was the first step down this path, right?
Yeah.
So how long was it that you were training before you realized, hey, there's other people that are going to run into the same problem?
It was about a year.
Okay.
It was about a year. And we live in a pretty small community here. And so the options for training were very, very minimal. And I knew that original school that turned me away when I was 8 was not an option. So I was down to like 2 options.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time in my life personally, I'd managed my cerebral palsy. I made a vow to myself once I got out of the wheelchair at 11 that I would never go back into it. And as an adult, medically, my muscles were getting tighter, and the doctors were like, well, the only option is muscle relaxers and things like that. And I'm like, really, I just started martial arts and it seems to be working. Let's give that a try. And he's like, nope, muscle relaxers is the only way you can do anything you want to try, but it's not going to work. And I'm like, okay.
And again, point of pride for Jason here. Prove the doctor's wrong, right?
And and so we kept training, but
so first of all, for the audience, did you take the muscle relaxers or no?
no.
Of course not. I just want them to know. I know you didn't. You're looking at me like, don't you know this? Of course I know this. They don't know this.
They do now?
Now they do. So Jason didn't take the muscle relaxers. Okay, great. So,
surprise.
Yeah, go figure. So how did you take it from your own journey into helping other people?
What I found, I got to back up a little bit, because what I found was all the stuff that I was told that I couldn't do, such as sit in a chair without a back or ambulate myself from a chair with my feet in a circle. I was just told that I would never be able to do it. It was just CP, right? So
it's just the way it was.
Right, and I started training in martial arts, and I'm starting to find, now it's not that I can't sit in a chair, it's that I didn't know how to sit in a chair, and I didn't know how to turn myself in the chair with my feet, and it was like, wow. So it wasn't that I couldn't, it's because that I didn't have the technique, and I think, not to take anything away from occupational or physical therapy, but when you're seeing a huge caseload, basically their job is just to get you to be able to survive day to day. And so what's the big deal? Just use a chair with a back, you know?
Right.
So what they said I couldn't do wasn't that I couldn't do it, was that I was never shown how
never taught the methodology. So this reminds me, and I know it's so far-fetched, but I think I'm hoping somebody on the listening side will understand this example. I remember being in junior high school when I was a kid and being told that there were 9 planets that existed. Not just 9 planets in the solar system. There were 9 planets. That's it. End of sentence. Right? And then you get to high school and they're like, no. There's hundreds of thousands of planets. And it's almost like, but they only told me there were 9, right? So you got the limited in the box subset of information.
Right.
Until one day you discovered there's an entire world outside of that box of limitations.
Right. And at the time, it just happened to be that there was another lady who was in a wheelchair and she had spina bifida.
Okay.
And she started training with an instructor south of us that was friends with my instructor. One night in the middle of the night, I woke my wife up and said, wow, this is working so great for me. It's working so great for her. I need to start an organization where, we could come together and have tournaments and showcase that people with adaptive abilities truly have that ability. She's like, yeah, go to sleep. It's like 2 a.m. I'm like, no, we really need to do this. And I'm like, then no other 8-year-old would ever have to go through this pain and be turned away.
There you go. Back to that pain, right? So you can showcase that this is possible for anybody who has the time and the effort that they want to put into it.
Right. And that everybody should be given an equal opportunity. And that if you don't know, that you shouldn't be scared of it. You should find resources to help you. So I'm like, I've got to be this resource.
Okay. So that was the decision point. At 2:00 in the morning, in bed with your wife telling you shut up and go to sleep, you realized you needed to do something bigger than just help yourself in this situation.
Right. And originally I thought, well, I'll do it here in Vermont. I'm sure that other parts of the country have already, there's got to be some resources out there. And so I did my homework and lo and behold, I found that there really were no resources. There were individuals maybe training 1 or 2 students, but there was nobody that was really a support for instructors and adaptive students that could help answer questions.
One of the things for our audience to know is that in Vermont, the total population here is about 650,000 people, right? So 650,000 people, that's smaller than some counties in Ohio. So you could make an impact here in Vermont, but the percentage of people that you'd reach would be minimal. Going national, because the need still existed even nationally, was pretty simple, right?
Right. Well, and it all kind of happened backwards, right? So we were doing this locally, and then all of a sudden we started getting, national interest in like, and I've got this student, can you help me? And I've got this student, can you help me? And before we were ready for the national level, it just kind of happened.
Just happened, yeah.
Yeah, and you're probably asking, how does Century tie into all of this? I mean, that was probably your next question.
Right? It actually wasn't.
Okay, well,
it's on my list. There's actually the Century question is on my list, but I'll come back and actually ask you that in a minute.
Well, smart guy. What was your next question?
My next question is how did you start? What was the first offering that AMAA put out there for people?
That we would have a small directory of schools in Vermont that were willing to at least take a face-to-face look at somebody with a disability, and that we would come together as a group to solve any concerns, and that we would get people with disabilities training.
Fantastic. So the original mission was to just create a resource list, really.
Right.
And that resource list, that's where you're saying to the audience that it kind of just grew to be this national thing almost organically.
Right.
That's what grew, was this list of resources in other areas throughout the country.
Right.
Okay. So my question now is, how does Century tie into this?
Okay, so Century ties into this because I felt like, I was pretty well known in the community because I had been in radio for several years, so you see the public on a daily basis. I saw some people that worked with some other disabled agencies. I knew of some other disabled agencies, and so I felt like, well, this is going to be easy. When I tell them what I'm trying to do, they're really going to support it. They're going to be on board with it. They're going to spread the word, tell their clients about us, and it's going to grow that way.
Sure, absolutely.
That was not the case. No, I actually called one of the disabled agencies, and their words to me were this: "This is never going to work. What do you know about helping people with disabilities? Nobody's interested in martial arts. And before you even begin to talk to us about it and we share what you do with our clients, you better make sure that you have support behind you." And I said, "Okay, thanks for your support." And I hung up the phone, and I got a hold of Century. Now, me getting a hold of Century, well, that's a little bit different story in itself, and I'll talk about that when we come back.
When we come back from break.
Beyond the Label, presented by Century Martial Arts, for everything that is martial arts. It's no secret, every martial artist, no matter their age, dreams of becoming a legend. A legend. Having their name listed among the greats like Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris, and Jackie Chan. You can hide it or deny it, but you know it's true. Being a legend takes raw talent, dedication, big breaks, and an ability to survive a roller coaster called fame. But it also takes one more thing to go with it: the best gear and equipment in the world. From the company that is martial arts, Century Martial Arts. They aren't just another martial arts supplier that's never set foot on a mat. They are martial artists, and that means they know their products and use what they sell. From uniforms and training gear to weapons and equipment, Century has it all for every martial arts style. Although you may never be listed among the greats, you can still shop like one at CenturyMartialArts.com and unleash your legend within. Century Martial Arts, the world leader in martial arts since 1976. You're listening to Beyond the Label, a raw, real-life look at living with disabilities, presented by Century Martial Arts. Check them out at CenturyMartialArts.com. Now back to the show with Mike D and JD.
All right. And so we're back. Awesome ad. And we talked about last week how that got produced, or last time. I'll get used to the podcast lingo at some point. But
wait, wasn't it? It was earlier in this episode, wasn't it?
Gosh, you sure?
Yeah.
These all run together for me.
Am I that boring?
Yes.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding. What? So Century became a sponsor pretty early on. Or at least a supporter of what you were doing, right?
Yeah. They became a supporter. And the way that happened was, like I said, the disabled agencies were doubting me. And in case you haven't figured out the theme, don't ever doubt JD. It's not going to end well.
Doubt JD. Yeah, don't give you a challenge where if somebody tells you can't do it, that's the best way to get you motivated.
That's right.
So what happens next? So you've established this list, it's growing, you've got a website, people are on it, and then you noticed that there was a gap in what?
Well, So we had the concept, but we didn't have the people. I would say we had the schools, but we didn't have the adaptive students to fill them.
Oh, and vice versa. Okay, on both sides of the coin. Yeah, very good.
And so that's why I reached out to this disabled agency and said, can you tell your clients about this new service that we're offering? Martial arts really works. It's great therapeutically. And they told me basically that I needed to show that I had major support. And I said, thanks for the support. And I hung up the phone.
Right. So what happened next?
Most people would kind of take that as a defeat.
Yeah.
And instead of taking that as a defeat, I used it as constructive criticism. Okay, well, I'll go and show you that I have major support. And then that'll eliminate your excuse. And so at the time, very famous martial artist Bill Superfoot Wallace was a catalog model for Century, and he was promoting the VersaFlex, I think it was. So I pop open their catalog. I'm like, he's got to be the guy. He's all over the catalog. So then I use Google, and I Google him. I'm like, I'm going to find his office or whatever. So I found a number. I called the number, and I said, is this the office of Bill Superfoot Wallace? He goes, office of Bill Superfoot Wallace? It's Bill. What do you need? So I told him the story. I told him the story and explained what I wanted to do. He says, oh, that's great. You get a hold of my buddy over there at Century, and he'll hook you up somehow. He'll support you. If there's anything else I can do, let me know. And I said, okay, thanks, Bill. Mr. Wallace, that's great, And so I sent an email, and I didn't really think anything of it. I'm like, well, how am I going to get major support? And then all of a sudden, this email comes in, and it was from Century, and it says, we love the idea of what you're doing. And I'm like, aces, it's a start. I'm in with a national company.
Yep.
Their disabled agency, is that major support enough for you? I'm like, they're the world's largest martial arts company. Well, yeah, you did that, but we still don't really believe in it,
So you learned at that point, you had to go out on your own.
Right.
And really just do this on your own without that support. So from there, how did it grow? Despite the challenges, what was the next step? Because we've talked about things about you've gotten training out in the field, you got instructors learning from you, you got classes now. I mean, we're much further along at AMAA than we ever were before. So what was the next burst of energy that got into it to help it grow?
From that point, people started to kind of like just pick it up through Google searches, and it was like, I'm out here in Ohio and I want to train, or I'm out here in Ohio and I have an adaptive student. Can you give me some information? And we just started to kind of figure it out. And we started to say, what do we need? What has to happen before people are going to believe that this is true and it's real and it's viable. So
one of the things that Jason's avoiding talking about for some reason, and I can't quite figure it out, is this massive group of people that he's established over the years that support this organization. So he's got nationwide, he's got doctors, he's got physical therapists, he's got occupational therapists that are led by a committee, and there are people here on the board that help organize that. We have people that want to do trainings and work with us for trainings. We have people that do local classes. There's other martial artists that want to get the message out there. I mean, we're talking 50 plus individuals or organizations that are now involved in AMAA that are all on mission with what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I guess I don't talk about it because I don't really think about it much.
Right.
I just kind of do what
you
we
should
do.
see one of the board meetings that we have. Like, there's so many people on the phone, you can't tell who's talking, right?
It's, and you say, well, how did we get to where we were? It was just like, okay, well, to make this a legit organization, you're going to need to have the backing of some physical and occupational therapists. And I started locally, and I made them understand what I was seeing in my own personal journey. And I made them understand how martial arts was helping with that.
Sure. And that's bringing a new tool to them, though. Right? Because historically, like you said, even your OT and PT people were, here's how you do what you need to do to get by. And what's happened with this entire organization nationwide is you're giving a new avenue for exercise, energy, output, put in the ability to stay limber, loose, and in good shape for people that might have a physical disability, right?
And the thing about it, Michael, is when you are a patient, when you have a disability or something like that, it's easy to go to therapy once a week and you go in and you do the thing and you go through the motions. But are you actually gonna go through that at home? Now, you probably would say, yeah, you'd be foolish not to. But I'm telling you, the reality of the situation is it doesn't happen. Right. And so,
just like every human being on the planet who wants to get up every day and eat healthy and go exercise and do all the right things, there's people that have got that down, but then there's the rest of us that don't.
Right. And for me,
so it's the same. So it's a whole nother thing on the list.
Yeah. And for me, martial arts became the vehicle for me to, okay, well, I don't really want to do these boring exercises, but if I want to be a better martial artist,
you have to.
Then I have to. And then from there, it became, everybody's watching you now as the spokesman of this thing. And so if I look like the Pillsbury Doughboy, which
you're fine, But so let's extrapolate that though. So that may be your mission and helped you personally, but at the same time, while this is all going on, there's all these other people now that have that same capability and that same mission, right? They need to be healthy and fit, and they get to do it through martial arts. I mean, how many videos do we see online? How many videos do you post on Facebook and on the website of different martial artists testing for their belts or getting to the next level or competing in national competitions? You've got the Special Olympics and all these other things that all now tie back to what you've been doing and done, right? And not to say that some of those people didn't go out and do it individually, but you're opening this up to the masses, to anybody who has that interest.
Right. And we're not the organization that wants to do it alone or needs to do it alone. We're the community that brings everybody that's doing it together.
Right. And that's the idea. And that's a great mission, because you're not trying to tell anybody how to do it. You're trying to give people the resources that if they want to, they can go, create from what you have available. Right. So we have a database. We've got resources now. AMAA doesn't have certification system yet, but we're thinking about that for the future, right? So that someone can go to the website and say, okay, these are the certified trainers that have worked with an OT and a PT to make sure that they're working with a specific disability correctly. And there's a lot of work that goes into that, and you have to be really careful. But, this is continuing to grow even today, right?
Right. It's like, I have a vision in my head for this thing, and so all those building blocks and all that stuff that you talked about, it was already in my head at 2 a.m. Yeah, and so sometimes I don't communicate that as well. But
that's why I'm here. Don't worry, I got you.
It's right. But we are on track to do it the way that we want to do it, and anybody that knows me knows that if I do something, it's 110%, and quality goes into that. And that's what Century saw. I wanted to showcase our organization at their national show, the Martial Arts Super Show, because that was the place where martial arts happens. And I didn't have the funds to do it. And basically they said, we'll work with you. And so locally, I just kept knocking on doors until I raised the funds I needed to get there. And once I got there, I knew the people I needed to talk to, and I followed them around the show relentlessly, and I think I just kind of beat them into submission to what we have today.
Oh, come on. They saw the vision from the beginning.
I think so.
And I think that they just, they saw your commitment to it and it just sent it to the next level.
And now we're taking things to a whole nother level with our partnership. We're working on R&D for some adaptive products and an adaptive product line that they want to create. And, they sponsor this podcast because, to me, on top of the services that we provide, it's important for me to, as the spokesman, show examples and spread the word of the importance of inclusion.
Sure.
And let people know that maybe their abilities are more than they even think.
So today, let's bring it up to today. So Adaptive Martial Arts today is a 501c3, not-for-profit organization based here in Pittsford, Vermont, which is where we're at now, right?
Yep.
Sunny today, cold, but sunny. And everything that you've put together in the past is here. Right now you're working on getting programs built with the education system for adaptive physical fitness in the school, right?
Yep.
And nearby is one of those. But again, everything that we're doing locally, we're going to try to get, a program around nationally so that can grow, that they can do this in other places.
Right. So this is basically an after-school program that will incorporate physical fitness into it for individuals who maybe a traditional PE class setting does not work well. So that way that they can still fulfill the PE requirements through martial arts, and all the programs that we start, they're pilot programs that are started here just because it's the easiest place for us to start them.
Sure.
And then with the vision that they will spread. And I guess to wrap my way of thinking up is the way my wife describes it. She says that that basically I'm the Mark Wahlberg. I come up with all the ideas, and then I just tell people just implement this. And they're like, "Well, how are we going to do it?" And I'm like, "I don't know."
For those who want to understand that reference, you need to watch the TV show Wahlburgers.
Right.
Right. Isn't that what that's what it's called?
Yeah.
Is that what the show's called?
Yeah.
I know that's what the restaurant's called.
Well, the show is called Wahlberg.
Okay, cool. All right. But you have to understand, Mark's the one who comes up with the idea and then kind of leaves it on the table for Paul to go and execute, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, anyway, good reference. But to summarize, yes, Jason's the idea guy. He is the founder. And then the execution is on those experts that are out there, right? Because you don't claim to be an expert.
No.
And I'm definitely not an expert. So we rely on this amazing team, like I said, of those physical and occupational therapists, of doctors, of other trainers, at AMAA. This team of people is what essentially helps us continue to grow and build this program.
Right, and we're always looking for people's ideas, and it's too much work to do it alone.
Yeah,
and so we really welcome ideas and support.
Input, concepts,
and
feedback.
And the thing is, Michael, is that a lot of times you'll find that somebody will come to us with help. We'll help them with what they need, and then it ends up turning around and they become a part of a committee or something like that, and that's how this thing grows. It's
I've been a board member in many different organizations, and the passion in this organization is none other I've seen in organizations I've been involved in. The people who care here really deeply care. And that's actually kind of going to be a good point to wrap up on here, is if this is something of interest to you, there's different ways you can get involved, right? One of those ways, go to our website, adaptivemartialarts.org, and fill out the contact us form. And you can just tell us about you and how you think you get involved, whether that's, your local community, you're a martial artist, you want to help, you want to learn, you want more information, whatever it is. How do you get involved? That's one way, right?
Right.
Another way is sponsorship. So if you understand what we're doing here, if you learn more about it and you think that, hey, look, I want to help. We are a not-for-profit 501c3. That money, some of it goes to administrative costs, but most of it goes into scholarships and sponsorships in these different programs or paying for different programs. So we'd absolutely love any donations that could come out of this.
We really want to try to help other people, and we can't do that without the
help of you.
Of
right.
you. I mean, it sounds kind of like, elevator pitch or whatever.
No, I'm just being honest.
But that's the honest truth about it.
We'll probably have a GoFundMe page up in the next couple months or so. You can check that out on our website if we do that too. But and in the end, if you want to get involved, if you are in the industry, in the adaptive martial arts industry, if you are a martial artist yourself, if you're a teacher, if you own a facility, whatever it happens to be, and you think that this is a path for you, and you want to start helping out, people that maybe have, different restrictions on what they can do, what would be the right way to manage that through that process, Jace?
Again, use our contact us page. We'll get you in contact with our therapeutic consulting board, and they'll get you rolling. And the one thing I do want to say, for those of you that do have programs out there that may be interested in having an adaptive program, 9 times out of 10, you are already doing adaptive anyway, and you don't realize it. And so the modifications that we can help you with are minimal, so that you can open your doors to changing lives. And that's really what it's about.
So it doesn't take a lot.
No.
Nice. Great. So listen, this has been another amazing, well, we think it's amazing. It's up to the audience what they think. But amazing episode of Beyond the Label. I'm Mike D.
I'm JD. And before we go, though, I do really want to send a nice shout out to Century and all the folks there, because without you and your support, we wouldn't be near
where we are.
Yeah. So it's been great.
Yeah, it's been amazing. We really appreciate it. Not just here at Beyond the Label, but also at the AMAA. So stay tuned for more. Next episode or the one after, we haven't decided yet. We're going to have a couple guests. We're going to talk about how do you go from being fully functional to being limited in some capability physically and manage that and cope with that so that you can continue to live beyond that label.
One of the other topics that I'm excited about that we're going to be talking about is anxiety, and how anxiety is in itself maybe a disability, but how anxiety plays in for somebody that has a disability and the reasons for that. And we're going to get
going deep. We're going deep, JD. So we're going to bring some guests in so you don't just hear our voices.
Sounds good, buddy. Well, thank you.
No problem. Again, like I said, I am Mike D.
I'm JD.
This has been Beyond the Label. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Beyond the Label. If you would like to be a guest on an upcoming episode, email contact@adaptivemartialarts.org. Beyond the Label is produced by JD Production and presented by Century Martial Arts, the world leader in martial arts since 1976. CenturyMartialArts.com for everything that is martial arts.